Yo, what's good? Big Z here. Congrats to the winner of the free mix and master from last week, Nixon Music. I'm going to do it again this week, so just comment below and I'll just pick a random person in a few days to win a free mix and master done by myself. But anyway, today I'm going to show you guys how to make this.
You don't call me when the rain comes falling down. Think of me late night when you go out. You don't need me when the world turns upside down. You used to, like you used to. You don't call me when the rain comes falling down. Think of me late night when you go out. You don't need me when the world turns upside down. You used to, like you used to.
So this is a Slap House track I made, and it's all using synth sounds from my new Serum preset pack that's out now. You can check that out below if you're interested. I just wanted to get into Slap House and why it's been so popular and how it's made and like what are the characteristics of Slap House. So if you're interested in making this genre, I think this video will definitely be helpful to you. But even if you're not interested in Slap House, I think there's a lot of really cool techniques going on here that could be useful for other types of music too. The bass lines in Slap House are really bouncy and short and plucky and dry. That's where it gets that slap name from. I'll get more into how those basses are made later, but let me just start at the beginning of the track. The verses and build-ups in Slap House are really atmospheric and big and open sounding, while the drops are really tight and bouncy and dry sounding. So that contrast between the two, I think, makes for a really cool style. So starting off, just to kind of keep the rhythm and key of the track, we have this ARP sound. It's not really an ARP, I mean, I'm just playing these same notes over and over again. And that's one of the sounds from the pack. It's just good to kind of set the atmosphere for the verses and build-ups. And then after that, I have this respace coming in. Almost every single Slap House track I've heard has a respace in the verses. It's pretty funny that literally every single one of them has this going on. But you can see I'm doing some automation here. So this is the respace preset right here. I actually have this macro set up down here that makes it more plucky as it goes along. So you can see throughout the buildup, it actually increases that macro right there. That just builds up the energy and adds some more character to that respace throughout the buildup. And you'll see I'm not really adding any external effects to these presets. Like this one, I'm just adding a filter throughout the buildup, so it kind of filters out the low end at the end of the buildup. But other than that, I really did all the processing inside Serum. So then the drums during the buildup, just to keep the rhythm going and keep the track moving, we have the open hat and the clap. But we're filtering it in. So the purpose of everything with the drums is just to build up the energy into the drop. We could probably even add some reverb automation to the drums during the buildup. If I were to open this reverb right here, we can just automate it on there throughout the buildup. So that might make it sound even more atmospheric before the drop kicks in. And when the drop hits, the main focus is really this in-your-face bass sound right here. An important thing here is that it's heavily sidechained to help out the groove of the track. So I'm just using kickstart all the way at 100% for this, just so the sidechain is at max capacity. That's what's making it so bouncy. What's also helping the groove is the swing in the bass line. So if you go down here, if I zoom in on the MIDI, you can see that there's some notes that are off the grid here, like way behind the grid. All you need to do for that is change the quantize setting, so you can change it as much as you like. 1/16 swing F, that moves it back even more. I might have had it for like, I had it at E for this track, I guess, but you can mess around with the swing however you want it. But if you didn't have any swing, it wouldn't sound nearly as good. Let's take the swing off for a second so you can hear it. It's not nearly as groovy as if I put the swing back on. So this bass sound is another one of the sounds from the pack. These two wavetables here make for a really cool sound, and I'm just making sure everything is really tight and short and plucky so that high-end slap can translate through the speakers. I also have some macros going on here to help make things a little more interesting. You can see during some parts of the drop, I've automated the cutoff of the filter to go up and the sustain of the envelope to go up, so it kind of opens the whole bass up. It helps bring some more life into that bass line. So the only external effect I'm adding here is just this EQ cutting off everything below like 100 Hertz and some boost in certain places. But then underneath that I have the sub bass. I wanted to be able to mix the sub bass in separately and individually control its volume in the mix this way. So let's say I didn't have the separate sub bass sound in there. Let's say I was just getting all the sub bass from this bass preset. What happens is if I want to make the sound really wide, it sounds good in the high end if you make the sound wider, but if you make the sub frequencies wider, which this is doing, then it messes up the phase of the sound. So it's better just to mix in the sub bass separately and have control over it and just have it sitting in mono. And to help give the drop more power, we're adding this brass hit. This is another sound from the pack that I think actually came out really well. It sounds really realistic, like actually a real brass hit would sound. But the important thing is that it's hitting on all the downbeats, so it's just adding a lot of power to the track. To make the bass line a little more interesting, I added some little slide fills in here with the sub bass. Adding little bass fills like that can definitely make your track sound more professional. The second half of the drop is where we really bring everything in. So let me zoom in a little bit here. So we already have the bass line and the brass hit going. But then we add the soft ARP back in. And then we add this saw bass in. It just kind of layers with that brass hit nicely. Just adds a lot more energy there. And then on top of that, we have the lead sound. It's important to note that everything has the same swing. So this lead sound has the same swing as the bass line does. So you'll see it backed up like 80 milliseconds every time there's a 16th note. And all the notes of that lead are kind of gliding into each other because I have mono and always checked down here in the voicing tab. So all those different elements come together to have kind of a similar rhythm and swing, so they all sound nice and cohesive together. So I'm also doing the same thing with the drums. Like this hat and shaker loop down here, you can click on a loop and you can quantize it to have the same swing as your synths. So if I double click that and I hit turn on flex time, then you can see I quantize that loop up here. You can move around this loop with the quantize feature. It makes everything fit together really well when the drums are doing the same swing as the bass line and synths. Anyway, I hope you guys go check out my new Serum pack and enjoy the sounds in there. It doesn't just have to be used for slap house music. I'm planning on using the sounds in there for my own house tracks and dance pop tracks too, so it can definitely cross over genres. But anyway, hopefully this video was helpful to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.
You don't call me when the